in the Third Circuit Court for Lafayette County, Mississippi. State of Mississippi v. Matt Reardon, cause number LK17-295. This is the motion for relief from judgment or order. Comes now before the court Matthew Reardon, the Movant, and now respectfully moves this court under this cause number to grant Movant's motion for relief from judgment or order pursuant to Rule 60B-4 of the Mississippi Rules of Civil Procedure. Movant acknowledges that he has an open appeal in the Mississippi Court of Appeals, which addresses the post-conviction relief filed in this court on July 7, 2020. However, the original criminal cause was not properly addressed in matters Movant now feels were the best of ways. Pursuant to the Mississippi Rules of Civil Procedure, the true governing doctrine on Movant's post-conviction relief, the judgment on which he filed his post-conviction relief upon should have been rendered null, void, and invalid, which in turn has burdened the Movant on perfecting his appeal of the denied post-conviction relief. Movant has long alleged this complaint was fraudulent, without justification, merit, or evidence since day one, and Movant properly raises the constitutionality of Movant's plea in a situation where Movant was denied basic due process rights over the entire 6 weeks leading up to his plea entered in criminal cause LK17-295. Movant is now asking for this court to promptly declare it so based on the cited, well-settled law brought forth in this motion on principle. Else Movant hereby invokes his rights under the Williams-Jennings Reservation and places the state of Mississippi and all liable parties of the violations of not only the state of Mississippi's own statutes, rules, and laws, but significant violations of federal law through a multitude of federal constitutional civil rights violations as well, which Movant will detail out in this motion. Movant states his motion will show that the state of Mississippi has had an obligation and has known of its obligation to ensure the accused are afforded due process in order to safeguard the constitutional rights of its citizens and to preserve equality and integrity. The state of Mississippi is aware of the consequences derived from depriving a citizen of his or her due process rights, including the requirement in the event it is made aware of constitutional/due process right violations, that it is mandated and further has an absolute obligation to provide corrective process pursuant to not only its own stated guidelines, rules, and laws, but well-established federal case law as well. Movant hereby makes his argument and offers in support of his motion. 1. A party may move to set aside a void judgment pursuant to MRCP Rule 60B-4 more than 6 months after entry of a judgment if the delay in moving for relief was reasonable. See Ladner v. Logan. 2. A judgment is void if the trial court lacked jurisdiction over the subject matter or the parties acted in a manner inconsistent with due process of law. See Bryant v. Walters. 3. The trial court has discretion to grant or deny a Rule 60B motion unless the judgment is void, in which case the court is required to set aside the judgment. See Sartain v. White. The key word in this being the court is required to set aside a void judgment. 4. On Friday, May 26, 2017, approximately between the hours of 3 p.m. to 4 p.m., Reardon was taken into custody in Oxford, Mississippi on its city square by Lafayette County Sheriff's Department and charged with aggravated stalking. A warrant had allegedly been issued to make the arrest, although Reardon was never shown a warrant at the time of arrest, nor was he ever informed of his charge until he was booked at the Lafayette County Detention Center. The criminal information in this matter states the appellant did feloniously commit the crime of stalking as defined in Section 97-3-107 and did so while displaying a deadly weapon, to wit, an AR-15 rifle, with intent to place Todd and/or Ashley Lynch in reasonable fear of great bodily injury, a violation of Section 97-3-107 of the Mississippi Code of 1972. As amended, which offense is punishable by not more than 5 years imprisonment and a $3,000 fine, or both. 5. Appellant did not receive an initial hearing in which appearance bond was issued until Tuesday, May 30th, 2017, between the estimated hours of 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. At this point, Reardon was escorted across from the backside of the Lafayette County Detention Center to the Lafayette County Justice Court for an initial hearing before Judge Carolyn Pettis Bell. From the very beginning, this amounted to false imprisonment and over-detention, in that pursuant to Mississippi law and federal law governing the due process rights of the accused, Lafayette County and the state of Mississippi had a maximum of 48 hours time to set an initial hearing and to bring the accused before a judge in order for bond to be set. This is no new law or requirement, and it was an obligation that the Lafayette County Sheriff's Department had known up front of its duties to comply with. 6. The Mississippi Rules of Criminal Procedure, Rule 5.1b3, details out that if a person is taken into custody, the person shall be taken without unnecessary delay and in no event later than 48 hours after arrest, before a judge who shall proceed with an initial appearance. If the person arrested is not taken before a judge within 48 hours, the person detained shall be released on execution of an appearance bond in the minimum amount set pursuant to Rule 8 and directed to appear at a specified time and place. Rule 5.1b3 conforms to the United States Supreme Court holdings in Gerstein v. Pugh. 7. According to the range chart on the Mississippi Rules of Criminal Procedure Rule 8.2, which was updated earlier that same year in 2017, a bond for an alleged crime that could receive up to 10 years incarceration should be set in the range of $5,000 to $50,000. Appellant reinforces that he was not charged with any capital crime or offense which is non-bailable, and that in fact the crime he was accused of receives a maximum of 5 years incarceration. As such, the minimum bond amount pursuant to Rule 8 that Movant shall have been released on would have been $5,000. 8. When factoring in two separate considerations regarding the bond amount set and the violation for taking nearly twice the amount of time to bring Movant before the court for his initial appearance, constitutes a direct violation of appellant's Eighth Amendment federal constitutional rights, along with Article 3, Section 29 of the Mississippi Constitution, which explicitly prohibits the setting of excessive bail and/or setting bail and bond in a punitive way. 9. Appellant was never advised of his right to a preliminary hearing, along with one never being set within 14 days as required in felony proceedings. This is not a discretionary rule, as Mississippi Rules of Criminal Procedure Rule 6.1 states. If a preliminary hearing has not been commenced within 14 days as required under subsection A, unless such hearing has been postponed as provided in subsection D, the defendant shall be released on recognizance. Subsection D did not apply. As such, the state of Mississippi was obligated to release Movant on his own recognizance by the 15th day. This did not happen. 10. Considering the aforementioned, unless the state of Mississippi can somehow demonstrate how the accused crime is considered non-bailable, particularly when Movant attempted to offer up exculpatory evidence of his undeniable innocence at the initial appearance before Judge Bell, the remaining 4 weeks Movant stayed incarcerated amount to false imprisonment and over-detention, along with a plethora of additional due process/constitutional rights violations simultaneously and concurrently aggrieved by Movant. 11. Currently, an appeal sits before the Mississippi Court of Appeals based on a denial by this court on Movant's petition for post-conviction relief, filed on July 7, 2020, and referenced to under cause number L20-316. Petition exhibits in denial are attached as Exhibit A. 12. The first denial by this court on L2316 came July 30, 2020, to which Movant refiled a timely motion for rehearing under MRCP Rule 59 before the Honorable Judge Kent Smith, due to his post-conviction relief originally being assigned to the newly appointed circuit court judge. The trial court summarily denied this motion for rehearing under MRCP Rule 59, which was filed based upon newly discovered evidence and a plethora of violations aggrieved by Movant due to the highly immoral and unconstitutional acts committed on behalf of the state. Motion in denial attached to Exhibit B. 13. Up until August 12, 2020, the assigned judge was newly appointed Circuit Judge Kent Smith. Yet for reasons unbeknownst to the Movant, Judge John Kelly Luther continued ruling on and further denying each of Movant's motions and petitions. 14. Movant would raise facts to Circuit Court Judge John Kelly Luther having had upfront knowledge of fraudulent acts and organized crime committed on behalf of officials in Lafayette County and on behalf of the state of Mississippi, which Movant claimed in multiple instances rose to the level of organized crime and significant intentional violations of the RICO Act. 15. Movant states that after he filed his motion for recusal on August 12, 2020, regarding rulings by Judge John Kelly Luther, the assignment of judge on this cause was fraudulently changed in Delta Computer Systems to reflect assignment of Judge John Kelly Luther. Prior to that, it still reflected Judge Kent Smith in the official record. Movant states that this is far from a clerical error due to all the assertions Movant had made and provided evidence to regarding conflict of interest and further warranting the recusal, Judge John Kelly Luther having upfront knowledge of crimes that were committed and continued to be committed. 16. A state that possesses knowledge of fraudulent deception and perversion of its own legal system and process, allowing for such incurable defects to compound and accumulate at the expense of a private citizen's life, liberty, and happiness, sends permanent disrepute into the state judiciary. 17. Movant sent a detailed email to Judge Luther's court administrator Kathy Sturdivant on June 1, 2020. Ms. Sturdivant replied the following day, June 2nd, stating that Judge Luther had reviewed the emails Movant had sent and asked her to respond that if Movant wished to challenge a plea of guilty, the rules needed to be followed as outlined in the Mississippi Code for Post-Conviction Relief. Movant reintroduces the emails as Exhibit C. 18. Movant had no other option but to file for post-conviction relief pro se. On July 7, 2020, as no attorney was willing to assist with representation and Movant could not afford an attorney due to the serious injuries incurred due to this very cause in 2017. 19. In the original criminal cause LK17-295, significant error and constitutional rights violations occurred on multiple occurrences and uncorrectable, unjustifiable areas, which in turn amounted to manifest error being committed in LK17-295, which Movant has continued to assert. The state of Mississippi has a mandated obligation to provide corrective process free from delay when it has been made aware of constitutional violations aggrieved. The three previous denials in L2316 constitute three additional direct violations of Movant's constitutional rights, guaranteeing equal protections under the laws of both the state and the United States. Movant would notice the state of Mississippi and Lafayette County of these three incurred violations/counts in a notice of intent to litigate the matter in particular. In turn, these issues should be granted immediate relief from what should be considered an involuntary plea made under duress after the state was an egregious violation of Movant's stated rights. 20. Movant states the issues pertaining to due process are binary, meaning either they happened or they didn't.